Welcome back to Jake and Kyle's Spooky Good Time. What are we talking about today, Jake?
I'm Jake, by the way.
I'm asking questions here.
No,
okay?
I know.
I'm asking
you. And
you.
you're Kyle.
It's not important who I am. I could be anybody. I'm anybody.
Today,
So you do not know this man.
Today we're talking about Heretic.
That's right. We're talking about Heretic.
And can you tell us a little bit about Heretic, Kyle?
Sure.
Great.
It's about two young missionaries who, what's IMDb say? Yes, it's a very pretty Bible. I love it.
It's back.
Yes, is that real gold leaf?
It could be.
It could be.
Probably not, but
does it taste like gold leaf?
kind of doesn't smell or taste like anything.
Two young. I'm gonna read the screen off camera. Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Very good. And who are the gals? Who are the lovely actresses in this?
Chloe East and Sophia Thatcher.
Very nice. And who's the creepy guy?
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant?
Yes.
You mean that beautiful, sulking British romantic lover boy?
No, Hugh Grant.
No, Hugh Grant. What are we drinking today?
We're drinking Guinness because I want to drink Guinness, okay?
Right. Couldn't have even had like a blueberry Nutri-Grain bar or something like that.
I
blueberry.
put something else in your drink. You can find out what that is later.
Can't wait. That's nice.
So
I like that.
Our very first episode
was on religion and horror.
because of this film.
Yes, we're here to talk about religion and horror again. And so to sort of remind the folks at home, Kyle, what makes horror such an interesting genre in relation to religion? Remind the folks at home.
Oh my God, just putting me on the spot like that? Jeez.
That's what I do.
Jeez Louise. Well, I don't know the answer. So, religion, like horror, deals with the unknown.
Definitely. Absolutely. I agree with you. And there's an interesting thematic thread in this movie that is a bit different from other religion and horror.
So in this film, two young Mormon missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
I should have gotten a non-alcoholic beer. Fuck. Why didn't I think of that? Fuck. Two Mormon missionaries. I hate myself. They show up at this guy's house. He seems like your run-of-the-mill British guy.
Yeah,
Very
run-of-the-mill British man.
Run-of-the-mill British man. But actually, he's obsessed with religion.
Mm-hmm.
That's the twist. And Monopoly. He loves Monopoly.
Yeah.
So basically, he asked them, how do you know that you believe in the one true religion?
Yeah.
That's the question he posits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it interesting that the two characters that they use to frame that question with, Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes. Sister Paxton being someone who came from had some sort of implied traumatic, tragic backstory, loss of her father, something like that. And it was that trauma and that pain from her past that drew her to a faith, which is very natural for a lot of people. They're drawn to this idea of God because there's a comfort there and it gives you a sense of purpose and meaning, especially in the face of such deep loss and grief. And so that's a great perspective to look at it through. And then also you have Sister Barnes. She just grew up in a Mormon household, and so she holds on to that faith because that's how she grew up, and it's natural to her, right? It's part of the way she was conditioned as a person and so socialized by her parents. And so I think it's very interesting to ask, how can you be so sure that your religion is the one true religion? You mentioned Monopoly. he uses that very interesting analogy that basically likens the Monopoly being a ripoff of another game that nobody knows the name of, and referencing, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Mormonism as being essentially just a copy of a copy of a copy, right? A ripoff of a ripoff of a ripoff, kind of like the Monopoly games.
Right. So
which
what
I found to be comical.
one thing that was surprising about this film is just how funny it is.
It's very funny.
It's very funny.
It's very funny.
We can talk about the acting later, but I loved Hugh Grant in this movie.
Yes. I love Hugh Grant in this movie. He's perfectly fun and creepy, but he starts off as a very fun, you can empathize with him in some way, or at least his ideology, his theory.
I think you'll get from the trailer that he's not a good guy.
Yeah, but by the end of it, you
if
really
somebody
just
watches
feel...
that trailer and doesn't get that, they lack basic media literacy.
Yes.
I mean, they got the creepy music,
Yes.
He's got that accent.
He's got the inappropriate smile. Smiles at inappropriate times.
Smiles
in
are
uncomfortable moments.
But circling back to that to the question that he asks, how would you know that your religion is the one true religion? How would you know that?
There's a lot of logic into his Mr. Reed, which, by the way, I think is a play on the word mystery, potentially. But I think that in regards to the question of how do you know your religion is the one true religion, I think that's where the element of faith comes in. And some people might not like that answer, but ultimately, if you're going to engage in a religious belief and conviction, you have to, at a certain point, understand that there's only so much you can do to rationalize and use logic to understand a potential God, and you have to take just a leap of faith, or a leap into faith, as Kierkegaard would say, into just choosing a single belief system and devoting yourself to it. Because if you can't have faith and you constantly are having doubt or any sort of questioning of a belief system, it's going to stop you from fully adopting that belief system and to take on its convictions, its practices, its ideology, its philosophy on life, its morals. At a certain point, you have to let the logic sort of like take a back seat, and it's more so about a commitment than it is about a full rationalization. And so that's why I do like the movie. It does address that in a few interesting ways. For example, Sister Paxton, after he's done with his Monopoly analogy, just full on says, and I like that she says this because it's exactly what I was thinking sitting in the seat right there, which was, she says, she's like, I get what you're saying. You're trying to say our religion is just a copy of a copy. And how do we know our religion is the one true religion when it's copying all these other religions who came before it? But I say your analogy, your comparison is offensive, she basically says, right? And like it's weak. And I like that this movie treated both sides with equal respect, right? This movie is not trying to make a decision for you of whether or not you should have faith, but it does such a great job of sort of playing devil's advocate, of both having you understand and agree in some ways with Mr. Reed, and then also, though, having equally as strong rebuttals to Mr. Reed's arguments, good counter arguments. And so I like that Sister Paxton just calls him out and says, I find your analogy offensive. And some of the characters that you're talking about in mythology and trying to compare to Jesus, she even says like one of them's blue, she says, right? He focuses on all the similarities between these different religions, but not the things that make their religion unique, or that the story of specifically Mormonism and Jesus unique, right? How did you like the arguments and counter arguments they were presenting in the film?
Well, I think it's a good point for a lot of people that it goes beyond logic and becomes a matter of something coming from within, a feeling from within. One thought that I had, though, is maybe the question itself is limiting, because religion is a set of practices that have been created by people. Mm-hmm. And it has the limitations of the people that created it. It could be describing something bigger than themselves, something cosmic that would be impossible for a human to fully understand. So I feel like religion is a lens to look at these things, but it's not, I don't think that it is those things, if that makes sense.
Got you.
This is a system that's created by people that is useful to people to describe these things, but to me the question doesn't really work.
Okay.
Know?
Yeah,
because it's going to be
fair.
flawed no matter.
I think a lot of religious people would disagree with you. Truthfully,
I believe it.
I truthfully, because a lot of religious people are going to disagree with you in the sense that they don't believe that religion is a construct of human design. They believe it's genuinely from God or inspired by God. There's a lot of semantics involved there that you could argue about. But let's just say, taking on the point of view of a very devout religious person, some people might disagree with what you just said in terms of the religion being a construct of human design to create a group of people who creates a system of morals and beliefs and everything. They would say to you that they had an angel, like in the case of Joseph Smith. He claims he had an angel tell him there were these stone tablets or something buried in his backyard.
They were gold discs.
Gold discs, that's what it was, right?
And
stone tablets, that's Moses.
He used stones to read them.
Yes. He put them on stones or something like that.
He put stones in a hat, and he could read them somehow with that.
Something like that. And
yeah.
people asked, where are the gold discs at? And he was just like, only I can see them. So, there's the part that people start to get iffy on of, should we believe this guy or not? But I will, to take on to play devil's advocate for the religious person, ironically, to be devil's advocate here, they might disagree with you that it's a social belief system created by humans. They truly believe it's a belief system created by God, just interpreted through human beings.
Well,
as his messengers.
I think that interpretation is kind of the crux of my argument.
Yes, I think it is though too.
I went to the Spectrum Center in Irvine the other day, and there was someone handing out Qurans in English, and the Quran is supposed to be divine revelation written in Arabic. So if it's been translated into English, then somebody had to decide, what is this? Which word should we use to? Which word should we use to describe that in English?
Yeah.
So there's fallibility there.
Absolutely. That's one of I kind of consider myself, at least in regards to the Bible, a translation nerd. Mm-hmm. I also do this because I like a lot of Russian authors. I look up, before I purchase and buy and commit myself to buying a book, if it's written in another language, I go look up and read different translations, because it's crazy how the ways one person interprets something, how much it can change, even though it's literally the same story.
Yeah.
They're interpreting it from the same language, and yet it could be so different in English, which maybe that says something greater about human beings in general, how we can all experience the same thing and somehow come to a different conclusion in our interpretation of that event or that thing.
Right. So I guess that's my thought. I mean, that's why I think maybe the question, the question is not a great question, but just food for thought. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in any of this, so it doesn't really matter. But
what I like that you were getting at is the second part of the theme of this film, which is it's not just about belief, but what Mr. Reed argues later on in the film. So this might be a slight spoiler, but
Spoiler.
This might be a slight spoiler, but yes, they're talking about belief and iterations of belief systems and what's the one true religion if everything just seems to be a copy of a copy. He gets to his point. He has come to the conclusion that religion is less so a genuine interpretation of God or a true religious belief system, and more so a system of control created by groups of people looking for control. There is one interesting argument that then comes up out of that conclusion he has, that I think the film didn't address it explicitly, but I think it did address it implicitly, which is if religion is just about control, and that's ultimately, it's not truly about trying to know God or trying to find a relationship with a higher being and live according to that higher being's ideals. It's just about control and a group of people trying to create a system of beliefs and ideals and morals to control people and create a society and that ultimately benefits them, right? But why is that such a bad thing? Which some people might look at me and hear me say that and just be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Of course it's a bad thing, right? These people are, religion manipulates people, and it's about controlling them and keeping them stifled and keeping them slaves to a certain set of ideals or beliefs. But I'm going to play devil's advocate for the religious folks that...
You've been playing the devil's advocate a lot today.
Devil's advocate. I just like saying I'm playing devil's advocate for the religious folks because it sounds ironic. I just like saying that.
Yeah.
But as a response from the religious side of it, why is control such a bad thing? And is there a benefit to the individual to having a set of ideals that helps control them? For example, this guy has come to this conclusion that control is what it's all about. And so his purpose in life is just to create misery for other human beings to prove his point. And he murders people. Spoiler. He murders people to prove his point.
Let's pause there for a second. From this point out, it's heavy spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched the movie yet,
yes,
stop what you're doing right now.
Go see the movie.
Go see the movie. Come back.
Like, subscribe, put us in your watch list, playlist, and come back to it. Yes.
Smash that bell.
Smash the bell.
Ding.
All. Not just personalized. Go to all. But, yes, heavy spoiler. He murders people. And he's essentially torturing people. I knew that guy
was up to no good.
He's torturing people to the brink, the edge of death in order to control them. And so there's sort of like an implied thing here, which is that, okay, let's just say religion is just a set of beliefs intended to control people. Why is that a bad thing since you're so free from these control techniques and these manipulation techniques of religion, if you're so free from them, why are you now inspired to keep slaves in your basement, to murder people with no remorse and feel fully justified because he's trying to make a point, right? So in other words, it's implied that he has no belief in a religious system, and so therefore there's nothing to hold him back from doing whatever he wants.
I got two thoughts on that.
Yes.
Which is, first off, he's obviously just a psychopath,
Mm-hmm. Fair.
That's what I got. That was the big takeaway I got. Maybe that was something that, I felt a little let down with the film in that, okay, he's just a psychopath. He's got people locked up in like little dog kennels.
Yes.
He's a psychopath. I was really hoping that he had awakened some kind of eldritch Lovecraftian being or something when he
Yes.
found the one true religion. But that's just me. I got a soft spot for supernatural horror.
It's all right. That just means there's room for you to make a movie in this realm.
Exactly. I'm gonna get Hugh Grant to play the guy. He's gonna wake up. It was all a dream.
Yes.
Anyway, I guess my second point is saying it's about control. Again, I think that, and I'm not. This isn't a criticism of the film. This is about Mr. Reed's perspective on religion. The way he wanted to look at religion is it's got to be one flavor of all of these different things, instead of religion and belief are not as intertwined as we want to think they are.
Yeah.
But also the whole notion of religion being about control. That's one way to look at it. I mean, religion as a human organization has been about control. Of course it's been about control. It has human fallibility baked into it because there's humans running these organizations. But even if we look past that, I think getting to your point, the idea of it being about control has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
I do think that having guardrails up is not a bad thing. Having social norms that we adhere to for the sake of,
for the benefit of the community.
of tranquility and us all getting along, we need to have basic things we all agree on. Now we think of that as the law. But back in the day, that was religion. Law and religion were the same thing. The high priest used to be the one dishing out justice. There wasn't this secularization of government that we have now.
Yeah.
So I don't think people who aren't religious are inherently bad, but I think that we underestimate how much morality and ethics came from religion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense because Mr. Reed, his conclusion is that it comes down to control, and that control is a negative factor because it's being used to manipulate you. But maybe it's a net benefit to society because, as you said, it provides guardrails. Sticking to a certain set of ideals and morals and beliefs is what can inspire a person to become greater than just their base impulses and desires.
Right.
And it can inspire an entire community to become stronger if they're able to devote themselves to a unified cause rather than just what makes me happy, what fulfills my desires, right?
And I think that's why we have a functional society now.
Yeah.
I mean, people could say, there's political corruption, there's crime, and so on. But on the whole, think about any other species with our level of intelligence. So I'm not talking about an insect swarm or something, but like our level of intelligence living in this much concentration. And instead of fighting for resources, we've organized ourselves so that we're able to function peacefully. So everybody's getting along. People aren't fighting over resources and killing each other on the streets. Yeah. We've built everything that we have because of this ability to put guardrails on individual impulses and desires.
Exactly. And I also think that there's an implied part of the film, which is all these women that he has in cages. The one that he uses to create his fabrication of a resurrection. Spoiler.
Well, they already know.
They already know if they've seen it.
If they're still here, it's their own fault.
But she says something in secret to her message to one of the sisters, which is that it's not real. And I think that's an interesting act because it shows that as much as he's trying to control these women, a person still has an ability to see a system of control and is able to rebel against it for better ideals, right? And I found that interesting anyways. And furthermore, like towards the end of the film, Sister Barnes, she starts to pray and she's gonna die, and Mr. Reed is dying because he's been slashed up, and he's going to come and do the killing blow on her, and she starts praying, and it's very weirdly intimate the way he like lays on her as he's gonna kill her. It's strangely intimate, which made it creepy, but also kind of sad at the same time. And I didn't necessarily know what to make of that choice, but I thought it was a good choice.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because, I don't know, I got a sense that he was fearful of dying.
Yeah, and maybe because they were both kind of dying together, there almost weirdly was something that was bringing them together.
I felt like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was creepy, but also at the same time, kind of saddening.
Yeah.
Right. And it was interesting how, in the end, we all turned to dust. Right. And so no matter how different we are in our beliefs or ideologies or our, the things we do while we're alive, in the end, we all become the same thing. We all turn back into carbon. Right. And so I found that interesting, but she's praying, and then all of a sudden Sister Paxton, who you think is dead, comes back and smacks him in the head with that nail, the wooden thing with the nails.
Chekhov's board with nails on it.
Yes. Yeah, which was set up earlier on. I knew it had to come into play at some point, but I forgot about it.
I was waiting.
I was waiting for it, but I forgot about it once it actually happened.
Yeah.
But it was great when it did.
Yeah.
And the fact that that happened while she was praying, and Sister Paxton, she must have been dead. It implies resurrection, right? And then when Sister Barnes escapes and she's looking she thinks she sees a butterfly on her finger. And earlier on, she talks about how, if there is reincarnation or something, she hopes she comes back as a butterfly so she can land on her loved one's fingers so they know it's her, right? And then so she imagines a butterfly on her finger. Or maybe it was on her finger, or maybe she imagines it. It kind of leaves it up to your interpretation, right? But I think that's an interesting way to end this movie because it almost ends it with maybe what they are believing in is real. Or maybe more importantly, maybe it's a positive thing because for some reason, something drove Sister Paxton to stay alive or be resurrected, however you want to interpret it.
Pro-Mormon film I've ever seen that Mormons would probably not like.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't care for this film. But
I'm not a Mormon. I don't.
If you're a
particularly
Mormon
like
and you're
Mormonism,
watching this,
sorry, but
I don't have a problem with them on a personal
no,
level.
I don't have a problem with them either. They actually, on the
They seem
contrary,
very
lot
nice.
of all the Mormons I've met have been some of the kindest, sweetest people I've ever met in my life. Much nicer than I am.
Clearly.
Clearly. But I found that to be an interesting end to where you can interpret Sister Paxton coming back as a resurrection, or you can look at it as something about their shared belief system kept her alive to want to help her in some way before she died. So her death was not meaningless.
Open-endedness. If you're a Mormon and you're watching this for some reason,
we don't know how you got
first
here.
off, thank you. And second off, please tell us in the comments if you watched this film and how you felt about it. We genuinely would like to know.
Actually, yeah. Seriously.
I think that would be really interesting.
I think
and we can do a follow-up.
You should watch this.
We could do a follow-up about that if somebody gets back to us.
Is there anything else you want to share about this film before we wrap up, Kyle?
The two leads were former Mormons. The two women,
you pointed that out to me, and
it was
I found
interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yes,
and
apparently they helped with some of the accuracy.
That's really great. Yeah,
and
I find that very interesting as well. That's great.
Oh, Topher Grace is in it.
I was going to say that Topher Grace is in it,
and we didn't know until we looked at the IMDb later.
Why is he in it? I mean, he's a great actor, don't get me wrong, but he's in such a small role.
Maybe he just loved the script.
Maybe he did, yeah.
And he was I want to be part of this
I love
story.
that though. I love that. I love actors who are.
But I didn't recognize him at all.
I didn't recognize him at all either. I didn't know it was him until you were like, "Oh, that was Topher Grace," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Is that another? Is there another Topher Grace in Hollywood?" It didn't look like him or sound like him or anything like that at all. But yeah, Topher Grace plays the brother, whatever, brother, father, whatever. I don't know, brother,
Elder.
Sorry, Mormons. I don't understand. I don't get it. Sorry.
Elder. Yes.
I'm not educated. Elder something.
Great performances.
Yes.
All around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really great. I would say highly recommend this film.
Highly recommend this film, definitely.
Very interesting. If you've seen it, we'd love to hear in the comments what your thoughts are, what your interpretations are.
Not thumbs down. Down in the comments.
Of what happened.
Give us your interpretation. Do you have a different theory? Do you disagree with myself or
what
Kyle?
What did the ending mean?
I'm sure you will disagree with me or Kyle or both of us. Yeah, what did the ending
What's
mean?
the
What
one
did it
true
mean to you?
religion? Tell us what the one true religion is.
I think it's probably Rastafarianism, if anything.
Please join us next week. Like and subscribe.
Comment down below.
Comment down below. All right, anyway, I guess we've talked enough. Well,
I'm Jake.
nah, I'm not telling you who I am.